Once you've set up your fund structure, you'll need to allocate starting balances to each of your funds. There are a couple different ways to allocate money to funds. One of the easiest is to use the multi-fund editor. The multi-fund editor allows you to enter the beginning allocation and fund limits for multiple funds from a single window, rather than needing to open and edit each individual fund record. Staff need to have the appropriate acquisitions permissions to access and modify fund information. To access the multi-fund editor, open the Acquisitions menu and hover over Funds. Select the multi-fund editor from the submenu. In the multi-fund editor, select your fiscal year from the drop-down menu. You'll see a list of all the funds and subfunds associated with the fiscal year. For each fund listed, you'll see columns for the beginning allocation as well as encumbrance and expenditure limits. The beginning allocation is the dollar amount assigned to the fund at the start of the fiscal year. To add a beginning allocation, click in the Beginning Allocation box to the right of the fund you'd like to assign money to. Type in the starting balance for that fund. In the multi-fund editor, you can also set limits on encumbrances for individual line items, orders, and funds for all fund types except deposit funds. An encumbrance limit will prevent staff from ordering or owing money over a certain amount. You can also set limits on expenditures for line items, invoices, and funds. An expenditure limit will prevent staff from making payments exceeding a certain amount. Staff will be blocked from exceeding expenditure limits unless they have the permission to override. You can also add a starting allocation and adjust fund balances from an individual fund record. In this screen, I have my sample fiscal year open. To view all of the funds associated with a fiscal year, click the Links menu from that fiscal year and select Funds. This will pull up a list of all funds and sub-funds that belong to that fiscal. To open a specific fund, double-click that fund's row or right-click and select Open. You should recognize the fund record screen from the earlier video in this lesson. To assign a beginning allocation to this fund, click the Tools menu and select Adjust Fund Balance. Because this fund does not already have a starting balance assigned, I'm asked to assign a beginning allocation. In the Amount menu, type in the dollar amount you would like to assign to this fund and add in an optional note. Click OK to assign the beginning allocation. In the fund record, select the Fund Balance tab from the left menu. Here, you can assign encumbrance and expenditure limits, as you could in the multi-fund editor. By default, the starting balance that you just assigned is input into these fields. Once you've finished editing, click Save to apply your changes. Now, what happens if you accidentally enter in your starting balance incorrectly or need to make an adjustment later on? It's easy enough to fix. Take my large print type fund as an example. If I need to transfer some of the money allocated to this fund to a different fund, say Print Adult Fiction, I can do so by clicking the Tools menu and selecting Transfer Money. In the Fund drop-down menu, select the fund to transfer money to, and then enter in the dollar amount to transfer. You can also add in a note that will appear in the fund transaction history. If you need to add money to a fund, but this money doesn't need to be transferred from another fund, select Adjust Fund Balance from the Tools menu. Here, you can add in a supplementary allocation, as well as reduce the current allocation if needed. You can also manually adjust encumbrances and expenditures in special scenarios. Once you've made the appropriate edits, click OK. If you still have questions after completing the lesson, email us at help@ccslib.org.